Today we're going to talk a little out-of-state recruiting, and we all know how much Alabama loves out-of-state recruiting.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. We'll talk about Game Time here in a little bit. Thanks for making us your first listen. And thank you, everydayers, for being here every day. And thank you, newbies, for being here today. Jimmy, out-of-state recruiting. People love to say, oh, Alabama doesn't prioritize in-state. They are prioritizing in-state, by the way. But, they are still prioritizing out-of-state, too. You can have two priorities at the same time. And that's what Alabama's doing. And you guys over at On3 talked about some of the out-of-state guys that Alabama is prioritizing. And I give the floor to you, my good sick friend. By the way, Jimmy is playing hurt today. You got to learn to play hurt in SEC, rub some dirt on it. And Jimmy is doing that today.
I'm not sure rubbing dirt all over my snotty face is going to do too much. But, hey, I'm down for trying anything at this point. Yeah, just got the upper respiratory winter crud. Brandon Arrington is one guy I want to talk about just because I'm just so impressed that Alabama's impressed him. I mean, this is a very similar kid to Dijon Lee last year. Not that him and Dijon are carbon copies. Arrington might even be more athletic, but he's similarly sized. They're from the same area, similarly ranked. And Brandon did, in his interview with Andrew Bone, and Bone's got some good stuff up about Arrington, he did indicate that Alabama's success at recruiting DBs out of California is a big thing for him, that he's seen Dijon and Damani Jackson and Chuck McDonald and Zabian Brown. I mean, it's a long list, and he's noticed that and gave Alabama a chance because of it. And gets to Tuscaloosa, he's like, no wonder they're signing here. I love it here. Brandon Arrington would be such a big deal. Great candidate to be a 5-star prospect in the next cycle. He's one to definitely talk about. Another guy that I like, and y'all are going to love my comp here, and I'm pretty adamant about it, but Cincere Johnson from Ohio. Luke's mentioned him a couple times. He's got the cool name. Cincere was here on the junior day. I'll tell you what, when you watch his tape and you see his size and see photos and everything else, he's pretty reminiscent of Reuben Foster. And I know that's a name that gets Alabama fans pretty fired up and excited. But there's reason to compare Cincere Johnson to Reuben Foster. That's not crazy. And of course, I'm comparing them based at the same stage. I'm not saying, oh, he's as good as Reuben Foster when he was in the NFL. No, I'm saying at the same stage as a high school prospect, he's really reminiscent of Reuben. Alabama's got a great shot at him. I know people will say, Jimmy, Luke, you can't go into Ohio and take a kid Ohio State wants. I agree with that general notion, but Kalen DeBoer just did it with Justin Hill. He just signed Justin Hill, an Ohio kid that Ohio State wanted really badly, and the kid chose Alabama. So it's not crazy to project Cincere Johnson to do the same thing, but Ohio State is the team Alabama's got to beat there. Tristan Keys is another name I want to go over, wide receiver from Mississippi. How many times, Luke, in every cycle do we discuss some badass wide receiver from Mississippi? It's annual. It's annual. And there was one last year that Alabama had a great shot at that ended up somewhere else. That could happen with Tristan Keys. But for now, Tristan Keys likes Alabama a ton. He's from the Hattiesburg area, so that's not like North Mississippi where Ole Miss would have even more influence. I think Ole Miss is going to be the team ultimately to beat here, and that won't be easy. It's not easy to sign these out-of-state kids, and wide receivers get some good NIL money too. But Tristan Keys is one to watch because he's an out-of-state 5-star that's extremely interested in Alabama. I think Alabama is going to be in it with Tristan Keys all the way to the end.
Yeah, look, I understand people have, the yips anxiety, whatever, about Mississippi and especially Mississippi wide receivers. I mean,
Gives me a runny nose.
Look at Jimmy. He's, oh my God, your nose has gotten so red since we started. Shouldn't you be guiding a sleigh somewhere? Anyway,
how does that pay well?
You know, I remember this, Jimmy. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember back in like, oh gosh, when was that? Probably in the 2014, maybe 2015 class, somewhere in there, maybe 2016. I can't remember. But the A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf class out of Mississippi. I remember a lot of Alabama people thought they were going to end up with A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. And it was extremely realistic
in the process.
It was extremely realistic. It wasn't like, wow, Alabama was in it. There was a while that you would have projected A.J. Brown to pick Alabama, but, that was he's also a two-sport guy. I think he was committed to Mississippi State? I think he might have been and flipped to Ole Miss, but Alabama was in it for both, but particularly A.J. Brown.
Yeah, but what's weird is A.J. Brown, for those you don't remember, he was from Starkville.
Right.
Ends up going to Ole Miss. People thought he would end up at Alabama. But that was back in the Ole Miss. They might have been doing some stuff days. But so
that's what we said when we lost a kid from there for sure.
Yeah. One other guy I wanted to bring up was this Darrell Trey Bell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he's committed to FSU. Look, and I know Alabama is heavily pursuing Jet Washington at safety. I don't think that would preclude them from chasing other guys. I mean, they feel good about Jet Washington, but Las Vegas is a long way away from Alabama. So, but what do you know about this guy?
Well, one thing about Trey Bell early on is, and this happens, we talk every year about don't get too tied up with recruiting rankings early, and this is crazy early. Today, as we record this is signing day for the last class. We haven't even brought that up. I mean, normally this would be one of our biggest shows of the whole year in the old days, and you didn't even bring it up. So today's signing day for the last class. It's crazy early to get too bought into recruiting rankings for the 26 group. And I say that to say Trey Bell's not ranked too high, but look at who's recruiting him. Look at the programs that value him, that are bringing him in. And, you can say chicken or the egg when it comes to recruiting rankings about offers. Do kids with sexy offers automatically get high rankings? Do kids with high rankings automatically attract sexy offers? It's actually not even chicken or the egg to me. It's literally intertwined. It's the recruiting industry and the schools catching up with getting all the evaluations, because evaluating every high school football player in America is a massive task. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes weeks. It takes months. Oh yeah, and all this time the kids are changing. They're growing. They're developing. Some regress. Most improve. But so don't get too tied up in the rankings. Look at who's recruiting Trey Bell, and you'll see this is a high value kid. Loves Alabama. Yes, committed to Florida State. Clearly was crazy about Alabama after his trip. You can read Bone's story on BOL about that too.
If you want to dive deep into my psyche, soon as you said, hey, it might be a sexy offer, the first thing I thought of was if I had the ability to Photoshop, I would put Kalen DeBoer's face on this. But, and yeah, that says a lot more about me than it says about anything.
But why you had that on speed dial?
Well, listen, I did just do a search, and as soon as you said it, I really didn't hear anything else you said, because I was like, I got to find this picture.
Or if you Google sexy offer, there's Costanza.
There is George Costanza doing his
and multiple Seinfeld references this week. I got some texts about our Seinfeld references this week. The people like it. Your the Marissa Tomei talk.
Oh, again, that's just I love that episode, and I watched several Seinfelds yesterday because that's just who I am. All right, let's talk a little game time. Game time's the best. I've used it recently, like for the Georgia game, basketball. I've used it for other games. I've used it for World Series and NFL, and to go see Tua and play Bryce Young. And I've used it to for college basketball. I've used it for everything. You know why? Because it's the best ticket getter place on the interwebs. There's got to be a better way to say that. But I've learned that I don't like to use the live read stuff that they give me for game time because I've used it so much. I already know about it. So I want you to feel the passion coming out of my mouth here that I love me some game time. And look, if you go download that app and use code Locked On College, that's code Locked On College. Somebody texted me the other day and said, "What's the game time promo code?" I was like, "It's Locked On College. It's Locked On College. Locked On College. Go use it." But even if and it's $20 off your first purchase. But even if like you've already purchased it before, and it's $20 off. Look, $20 is a big deal in these day and times. I mean, $20 gets you an egg and a half right now. But you know what? It's not the biggest thing. Game time is super. Their customer service is super. They let you see where you're going to be sitting, and it's the best prices guaranteed. So what time is it? It's game time. There are some other official visits that have been set for the June-ish month. Jimmy, so what kind of official visits can we expect in that area?
Well, most of the kids that came in this past weekend set up official visits. I mean, that was the goal. The goal is to get kids on campus multiple times before they go on an official visit. And the kids that you bring to campus that you want, lock them in. And what we talked about, Luke, before this trip was, hey, this isn't a normal junior day like we've used to in the past where they're just casting a wide net and looking around. This was about, these are the kids we want in this group. So the next step after they come in, look around and like it, is lock them into official visits. Many, if not most of the kids that came in this past weekend are locking in these official visits, like Emmanuel Ruffin, the defensive lineman from Bessemer that we haven't talked about enough yet, but we'll talk about more, down the road. He's an in-state kid that's blowing up, got Georgia, Texas, LSU. His offer list is getting kind of ridiculous, but he set up an official visit. EJ Kroll, who we've talked about a lot of times, it's an EJ Kroll podcast. It was going to be one for 2 years until he reclassified, but he saved y'all from listening to daily EJ Kroll for 2 years by reclassifying. He set up for an official visit. I think we're going to see Sincere Johnson, as a guy, Brandon Arrington, who we've already talked about, Tristan Keys. We've already talked about Trey Bell, who we just talked about. All these guys have either set up official visits or are highly likely to. And look, the recruiting calendar has changed. That's what I want to talk about today because, man, some things are kind of obvious and we still don't talk about them enough. When me and Luke were growing up in the prehistoric era, official visits happened in December and January because the signing day was today, first Wednesday in February. So all these official visits took place in December and January. Football season was over, and that's when that happened. Well, now, think of how complicated this is. Now official visits take place in the summer, June, July, mostly June. And Alabama's going to have virtually everyone they want in the 26th class is going to be here in June of 2025. And after their official visit is when Alabama's going to say, we would like you to commit and be a part of this class and hope that they can seal the deal, right? Now you got to hang on to them for 6 months. Used to have to only hang on to them for a couple of weeks. And that was before NIL. Now you got to hang on to them for 6 months while they get legal monetary offers to sign somewhere else. How is that for a crazy system? But that's what we got now. It's not like Alabama can change it. You just have to, adapt or die, adjust and go with it. And they did really well with it a year ago, finishing with number 2, number 3 class. And I would say based on results, I know they don't have many kids committed, but based on what's all going on out there, the feedback from the kids and everything else, I think this class is going to look a lot like the last one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, really quickly, a note that just came across the wire. Set your faces to stunned because Ty Haywood committed to Michigan. Yeah, we knew that was coming. But so be it. Again, our offensive line class is great. I wish we would have had him. I think it stinks. I would have loved to have had him, but you know what? It happens. Now, the other thing we wanted to talk about today was Andy Staples' extraordinarily misguided college football playoff prediction. It is look. Far be it from me to say Andy Staples doesn't know what he's talking about, because I think he is a pretty smart dude overall.
Yep.
But his playoff prediction is this. And again, hold your laughter till the end, please. Number 12, Tulane against number 5, Ohio State. And what's funny about that, okay, number 1, Ohio State at 5 is interesting because they were, they were outside the top 4 this year, and so he thinks somebody else win the Big Ten again. Okay, that's fair enough. But I look at Tulane, and I'm like, Tulane lost their quarterback, who everybody apparently wanted and loved, and Darian. They lost their tailback, who is great, in Mekhi Hughes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Okay. Then he has Florida at Notre Dame. I think it should be noted, didn't he play at Florida?
Staples played for Florida, yeah.
He's a kicker, right?
I don't remember what, but yeah, I guess so. Staples played at Florida, and I'm surprised that he included them. And I'll go on my post rant is going to be largely about Florida, but go right ahead. Florida.
So he's got Florida at Notre Dame. Okay. And then he's got number 10, South Carolina at Penn State. Okay. Again, I see Penn State in there. This fantasy everybody has about South Carolina making the playoffs next year is just, it's getting kind of weird. Like it's getting to where there's no chance it's going to happen because everybody's predicting it. South Carolina's schedule is not a breeze, y'all.
It's feeling a lot like Ole Miss last year, but South Carolina's not as good as Ole Miss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Ole Miss hype was more justified than the South Carolina hype. And I say that knowing Alabama's got to play there. And it's going to be a really tough game that Alabama may not win. Yeah, but I'm with Luke. I think the South Carolina hype has gotten a bit out of hand based on their losses on defense, and the playoff is not really in their DNA. So, and they're in the SEC where every week is a potential loss. If you're South Carolina, what SEC team is not a potential loss for South Carolina?
Exactly. If one guy were predicting it, I'd go, okay, I respect the out of bounds, out of the box thinking. But it seems like a lot of people are picking it. I'm like, okay, y'all, I just want to remind you, like, first of all, South Carolina's got, they do have to go to Ole Miss. They still got to play Clemson, who's going to be a lot better. I don't know about a lot better. They'll be better next year. Now, they have owned Clemson of late. I'll give you that. But they've got a 3-game stretch in there where they go to LSU, Oklahoma at home, and Alabama at home. That is a 3-game no-break stretch.
They could lose all those games.
Easily.
And I'm just, and I compared it to Ole Miss. I'll go even further. It's a lot like, even more like, 1 year ago at this time, a team you saw in a ton of these playoff predictions was Missouri. Missouri was in a lot of these early playoff predictions. That didn't come close to happening. And in fact, I would say that South Carolina 2025 is probably very much alike 2024 Missouri, who also returned a quarterback and Luther Burden, and they were sort of perceived as a hot program. They weren't even really that close to the playoffs in 2025. I'm with you, Luke. I think South Carolina and Florida both are too hyped. So is Auburn, although they haven't been in one of these projections in a minute.
Now, and then finally, they've got, I say finally, I'll give you the top 4 too, but he's got Illinois at Georgia. Again, okay.
I don't buy Illinois as having staying power. I don't. I like Luke Altmaier. And I think he's a legit winning college quarterback. And I like Brett Bielema. I mean, I think he knows what he's doing. But I don't buy Illinois as they're going to be good year after year. I don't buy it.
Now, and then his top 4, again, and this will probably change. Because they may do something about the seeding and the top 4. They might. I'm not saying they will. But he's got BYU as the Big 12 champ, Clemson as the SEC champ, Oregon Big Ten, and Texas SEC. So what you notice first, again, is no Alabama. And again,
Georgia was in there, right?
Georgia was in there, Georgia, Illinois.
Georgia was.
I'm not upset by it because I understand that some people are, but boy, I feel like our odds for making the playoffs with Grubb joining the fold have increased exponentially. And I'm feeling better and better, even though, the same, if a South Carolina fan were listening, they go, yeah, our schedule's hard. What about y'all's schedule? It's even harder. True, but I think we have more talent. So, and we have more experience dealing with hard schedules,
Here's another thing. And boy, I'm not going to diss the kid. I was making this comp before anyone else was. And I think I was saying this kid was good before a lot of other people were. But the Lenora Sellers hype has also gotten a little much. And hey, I was on that train early. I'm still on the train. That doesn't mean that he's not a little overhyped. What I would suggest people do is go look at his season totals, what he accomplished on the field, look at his numbers, and compare them to Jalen Milroe. Now, you're going to say, he didn't turn over the ball as much as Milroe, or he did. I'm just saying the numbers are highly comparable. And if you think, listening to this, if you're a person out there that thinks Milroe stinks and is terrible, you can't look at Lenora Sellers' numbers and go, well, this kid's awesome. I mean, the numbers are really similar. Now,
I'd be willing to bet if you change teams with both of them, the numbers would stay about the same too.
I can buy that. And I'll grant this. I mean, Sellers has a bright future, and Sellers was a younger player in his first full season as starter, 2 years younger than Milroe, and his long-term prospects are probably better. I'm just saying it's a stretch to look at them. It's a stretch.
Listen, here's the thing. See, when you're an Alabama quarterback, you're already getting the benefit of the doubt, and people already want to hate on you. And as soon as you throw an incompletion, you stink. If you're a South Carolina quarterback, and no matter what your statistics are, if you lead the team to a win over an upset, if you lead the team to an upset, people are going to be like, check out this quarterback. That's the way it works. But we're going to talk a little basketball now, Jimmy. Okay, first of all, I did want to throw this out there. I just looked up who Florida State plays after Alabama next year. Guess who they play after they play us in the first game next year. I'll give you 100 guesses, and you won't have no shot at getting close.
North Alabama.
No, they play East Texas A&M. I did not know that was a thing. That implies there's a West Texas A&M. So
how have I not heard of a college big enough for Florida State to play?
And their mascot is the Lions. When I think Texas, I think Lions. But anyway, all right. So let's talk a little
Texas A&M.
East Texas A&M Lions. All right. So Auburn got a big win last night. They blew out Oklahoma. I mean, look, Alabama blew out Oklahoma too. I know, but Auburn's they're just stout. They're a machine right now. They're an absolute machine. Kentucky, they seem to be falling off a cliff a little bit. I will predict this, that Kentucky will rebound and they will start playing better maybe towards the end of the year. They've got a lot of talent. I think that they've just hit a bit of a lull. And I think that's how most teams are now. Auburn hadn't really done that. Alabama has done it in a very minute way. I guess if you just want to call the Ole Miss game that way, that's fine. And Duke really hasn't done it. But otherwise, just about everybody else has. I mean, Iowa State got beat at home by 19, and then they go on the road and get blown out at Kansas. So Iowa State's a very good team, but they've hit that traditional college basketball lull. Tonight is interesting because you got Missouri at Tennessee. And why is that interesting? Well, Auburn's 9-0 in the league. Bama's 8-1, Missouri 6-2. And so if Missouri loses, which I think they will at Tennessee, then that gives Alabama a 2-game lead on second place. And Auburn obviously would have just still a 1-game lead, but a 3-game lead on anybody for second place. So, and then this weekend, you've got Florida at Auburn. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Auburn wins that game, especially if Walter Clayton's not playing. So, this thing is just shaping up to be all Alabama, all Auburn very, very quickly. So the one thing Alabama can't do is do something like go to Arkansas and lose.
That's right. That's right. I mean, what you want to do is make the Alabama Auburn game not just the game of the day. Make it the game of the year in college basketball so far. That would be amazing. That Alabama versus Auburn would be the biggest game in college basketball this season. And you only do that by both Alabama and Auburn winning out until that game gets there. Alabama's got 2 tough road games at Arkansas and at Texas. I know Alabama's favored to win both. I know Alabama's better than both of those teams. But winning on the road is just incredibly tough to do. Don't be fooled by earlier results. It's going to be hard.
It's definitely going to be hard. And look, I don't want to get way too far ahead of ourselves, but I'm looking at the Alabama-Auburn game, and the worst ticket I'm seeing, and this is an all-in price, the worst ticket I'm seeing is $400. And that is in the corner. You can't see anything, all that stuff. And the better tickets, the ones on the floor, I'm seeing upwards of $3,000. So what I'm loving about this,
literally cheaper perhaps to get in the Super Bowl Sunday. Perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Super Bowl tickets. The cheapest one I've seen is about $6,500, but yeah, you're right. About half of that, which is nuts.
Completely nuts.
So
sports event in the world.
And look, I'm going to do a crossover with Zach next week about the game and whatever. And I'm going to tell you right now, I hate this game. I am dreading it. You think I would be super excited? I'm dreading it because you lose this game at home in the atmosphere that we're going to have, it's going to be a problem. I mean, that's going to be a real worry. Like, what can we do going forward? But I shouldn't look at it that way. I really shouldn't, and I shouldn't be worried about it because we have Arkansas and Texas coming up, and we got to deal with those two. By the way, should be noted, Texas has Arkansas tonight. Yeah. Then Texas goes to Vandy. Okay, Vandy just lost last night to Florida. Vandy needs to get some rebound, literally needs to rebound. And if they can beat Texas, I find that to be something that could probably help Alabama because I want Vandy to get back on a roll because guess who Vandy plays next Tuesday? They play Auburn next Tuesday at Vanderbilt.
They should dress Diego Pavia for some of these games. I mean, why not?
Good idea.
I mean, why not?
Well, you know what they did? I was going to say they could bring the guy from SEC Shorts, who does the little pimp outfit every time Vandy. But they did that for the South Carolina game, and remember they got waxed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's I could talk about that forever. That guy is great. I mean,
he's talented.
Why he's not on SNL is an outrage. He would be like top 3 funniest guys on SNL. That Vandy pimp character is the funniest. I laugh just thinking about it. It's so funny.
It is very well done. I didn't want to like SEC Shorts when they first came out, but now I love them. I mean, I look forward to it. They need to do more basketball stuff, though. Now, I know it's not quite as easy, but I wish they would. But coming back,
the league so well. That's why it's so funny. It's funnier the more you know the league, the funnier those jokes are because they know the stuff and
they're message board people. I bet. I mean, they got to be.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt they spend a lot of time on the message board. Josh is probably an Alabama fan. Just I get that sense from the writing because I do believe Josh Sneed, the main guy, he writes most of them.
And by the way, if Jimmy stood next to Josh Sneed, it's like me standing next to Jimmy.
Yeah,
Josh Sneed is like 4. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, but he's like 3'6", maybe. I don't.
Yeah, Luke would be the center, and Josh would be the point guard. I would be the small forward. I'd be the 3. Luke's at the 5. Josh is the 1.
Well, all right. So, is there anything else basketball-wise you want to throw out there right now, Jimmy?
I did play the only year I ever played basketball officially for my school. I did play the 4 for real.
Really?
Yeah. And we were 0-12. Of course we were.
Now, that does make a lot of sense. Now, if y'all will bear with me, I'm going to show you something. I know that this is apropos of nothing, but I'm going to show you something here if it'll ever come up.
Is it another Costanza?
Dang it, it's not coming up. But
George Costanza dunking a basketball?
No, it's even better than that. It is an old picture of somebody sent me of my old basketball team. I think I was 12. And see if you can spot Luke in here.
Well, yeah.
I'm the one in the middle with the rec specs. And look, also notice how one of our one of us has jams on. This basketball team, we had a team.
13's not your brother, is it?
No. That is me, number 15. We actually
might be your brother.
It was one of the most fun times I've ever had playing basketball, because at the time I just couldn't score at all. I was just a rebounder and a shot blocker. That's all I did.
Kurt Rambis.
I was Kurt Rambis, and I loved it. And we actually made a rap for our team. This was like 1984-ish, and I still remember the rap. And maybe one day I will tell it to you guys, but not today. I shan't. So that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.